Warning, explicit content. This material may not be suitable for children. Listener discretion is advised.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mining Minds LLC. We got Kiwi Kaupa sitting here with us at the face. How you doing, Kiwi?
Good, brother.
So
Thank you.
Kiwi's from the electrical side of it, we'll say.
Yes, sir.
Got Dino Brunson here. What's up, Dino?
What's going on, Bum?
Kiwi.
Yes, sir.
We've had you on before. We actually weren't, quote unquote, we weren't happy with our quality or sound quality of that. So we're bringing you in again to kind of redo this. And I think from both sides, it's actually going to be a good thing. We learned a little bit about you since then. For those of you guys that don't know, Kiwi has a business or just recently started a business in the electrical side of things. So we'll get in and we'll dive into that. And it allowed him to kind of expand and grow since the first time we talked. And really, what we captured last time was who Kiwi was and how you got into mining. So can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, g'day everybody. My name is Kiwi. I began my career as an electrician a long time ago, but before, something I've been thinking about leading up to today, actually, that I didn't mention on the first podcast, was actually how I actually decided to become an electrician, and it really began when I was actually a little kid, and my mom, I was raised in the hood, and my mom, we didn't have much money to be able to get things fixed, and I remember I would always try and our washing machine. So, whenever the washing machine would go bad, here I was, and knowing what I know now, and the risk of being, electrocuted, I was a little kid, and things fascinated me about motors, pumps, and some reason, which I can only say was a miracle, I was able to figure this out. And so when I look back in my career being an electrician, I'm an electrician for 29. This is my 29th year, so for a long time, and that interest to want to see how things work, how to fix things, began as a young kid. So for anyone out there that has had is thinking about getting into the electrical career, into the electrical field, by all means, if you're a person who likes to analyze how things work, in particular machinery, and you like to tinker with things, then I'd say give it a go. For all those young people that might be listening out there, to give the electrical field a go. It's you might find that it's something that you really like, and then add that to the mining aspect, and answering your question directly. I'd say technically my mining career began back in 2001 when I was in Australia, and most folks know who are listening know that Australia's it's a huge place for mining, and I really began just building electrical control panels for mining pieces of equipment, and then I took a little break from that, and then got back into the core part of what I would do, which would be being an electrical serviceman while I was in Australia, and stayed in that. And then in construction, I began down under. It's a little bit different to how it is up here. So down under, you still are required to complete an 8,000-hour apprenticeship, which has the basically 4 years of theory, electrical theory, and 4 years of practical. And now they just have a logbook where you've got a checklist. You just, as you complete a particular task, then you get that signed off. So I did it. I did 8,000 hours, which is 4 years as an apprentice in the electrical field, and then my next contact with mining came when I actually arrived here. My wife was here, and my daughter was here. So this is a community of mining, and all my in-laws, my in-laws have along in the tooth of mining, and so coming to an environment like this and realizing that there was quite a high demand for sparkies, or electricians, we call them sparkies down under. So it was just a natural fit to be able to fit into the mining environment over here, and I consider myself blessed. I had a real good chance to be with probably one of the best companies that does a lot of the commercial stuff for the mines, and that's Electric. I consider that a blessing because naturally I spent the majority of my years using the Australia-New Zealand electrical code. The code is combined down under for those two countries. And so it was a blessing to be with INE, because there I got to figure out, how does the NEC actually apply? How does the NEC put into practice the things that are inside my code? Now there obviously, there are a lot of overlaps. But the application might be different. Like, for example, one of the biggest differences, if you went down under, if anyone's been down under, what you notice, if you went into a room and it was dark, the first thing you're going to do is turn on the light. So the first thing I had to do was get used to wiring a switch upside down, because it's totally opposite down under to what it is up here. And one of the blokes I was working with, good guy, Mr. Stephen Moore, he said to me, he goes, well, because we were fitting out a building, and he goes, well, if we know if any of the light switches are upside down, we know that, I was the one. Kiwi was the one who did it. But I spent a little bit of time with them, and then that kind of orientated me around the mining lifestyle, the mining environment, getting used to the safety. I got to take my hat off, actually. I've never been in a working environment that has such high standards that are required, statutory standards that are required by mine operators, and I think that's a really good thing. When you look at the amount of dangers and hazards that are present in the mining environment, I just think that's perfect opportunity to be able to raise your standard like that. So yeah, better mining. Right in depth into mining only since I've been here, but yeah.
Where is your accent from?
So my accent is from Spring Creek, Nevada.
That is an excellent accent.
That's an excellent accent, isn't it? If you go down the Lakeport Drive, you'll get this accent.
Perfect. I need to move there.
Right.
I've got a question for you, Kiwi.
Sure.
You said something right off the bat that I wanted to kind of hit on. And I wanted to interrupt you at that point, but I didn't. You said you grew up in the hood.
Yes, sir.
You talk about the hood. I want to make this clear for everybody here. We're not talking the streets of L.A. We're not talking the streets of New York City. Tell us where you came from. Where were you born?
Yep.
How did you start in the hood? Where was the hood at? And get us to that point, right? Because there's a lot out there before your mining history that we kind of missed out on there.
Yeah, absolutely, matey. So the hood for me was, I was born in a lower socioeconomic environment. I was raised by a single mom, love that woman, and there were 4 kids to raise. I was just fortunate, mate. But back then, down under.
So it was in Australia.
Actually, it was in New Zealand.
New Zealand.
And then I spent a little bit of time in Australia. So I was born and raised in New Zealand. That's the home. That's the faraway homeland for me now. And then spent a lot of time in Australia. I love that place as well. My kids. I have two elder boys, and shout out to my son, my youngest son. He just went on his 2-year mission for the LDS Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. My bad.
Good job.
So he just left for that. So they're both down under in Australia. Born and raised in New Zealand. Worked in Australia and New Zealand, and then how I actually got into being an electrician and doing electrical work was once again a miracle, because I went and done I've been done what my youngest son, both my sons have done now, which is I served the mission, and I served the mission for the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints down under in my homeland. And once I finished that, 2 days, the next day, it wasn't 2 days, the day after I came home, I was, it just really helped put me in a good frame of mind, and wanting to really contribute to society and get a job. And I pretty much walked into an electrical course, and then from there, an apprenticeship spawned out of that. And then, my career kind of just grew from there. But throughout my career, what really interested me, and that has come to the fore right now, being in mining, is being interested in automation. my company name is Kiwi I&E. So it is the instrumentation side, the electrical side. And what interests me, which is a huge part of mining, is automated control and being able to use technology to be able to make the process safer in some instances and then more efficient in others. And then for a little while there, so I stayed in the career for quite a long time. And then back in 2004, I actually I took a change of course, and I decided to actually get off the tools, so to speak, and not be an electrician anymore. And I wanted to actually have a change of career and become a lawyer. So in 2004, I actually began a law degree. It took me 8 years part-time to be able to complete that, which was a long time. And then I spent a little bit of time in a law firm as an intern, is what we call here.
A law firm down under, or a law firm here in the States?
Law firm down under, and it was probably in the top three law firms for environmental management. Although that's not the area I specialize in my law. My focus actually was on international commercial arbitration, contract law, and bankruptcy.
Wow. So to kind of put this in perspective for the people that are listening, you guys hear the accent. We're talking about New Zealand being down under. So automatically my mind goes to not a Polynesian man. So I'm playing a mental game with myself at this point, because I hear the accent, and if I close my eyes, I can picture something different. But I'm looking at Kiwi right now, and he's a Polynesian man.
Amen.
From New Zealand.
Yes, sir.
Is this a Polynesian accent, or not a Polynesian accent, but a down under accent or New Zealand accent?
Yeah, it's a new. I like to call it a down under, because most folks, everybody's heard of Men at Work's classic song. I come from a land down under, and most times when I speak to most folks here, they think, "Oh, you're from down under." So, strictly speaking, I'm from New Zealand. A born native of New Zealand. I'm Polynesian. I'm Maori and Scottish descent, although you wouldn't tell that there's any Scottish on me.
Correct.
Although I do wear my Scottish equivalent kilt at my house, which is the lava lava.
There you go. I like it. Cool. And so what got you away from the electrical side into the attorney side?
It was really looking at, trying to push myself and trying to see if I could work in that area and maybe combine my electrical together, because one of the things I was becoming interested in was looking at international agreements between two international parties. And for example, when they contract to say, let's say, build a mine, say, and looking at what's So I already understand the construction side of things and building a huge complex. But what I wanted to know was what happens when a dispute arises and, things don't get built. How does that actually settle? Because, of course, if we have a domestic issue or dispute between one private person of the same country, one private citizen to another private citizen of the same country, right, we know that we can just take that dispute to a local court. But when it comes to dealing with, transnational parties, then who takes over? Who adjudicates in those instances? And that was something, with the contract, that was something that I found really, really interesting.
You've got a lot of knowledge behind what you're talking about, because at this point, you have your own company, and it's strictly focused on instrumentation and electrical. So to go from being an attorney now to being on your tools, servicing customers and trying to build your business, how did you make that transition?
Actually, I was looking in and I thought, that does sound kind of weird. I was, trying to wonder, where was this path going to lead for me? Because to be honest with you, my purpose in coming here was actually because, America is the home of litigation. It's famous. It's well known for that, especially in the legal fraternity down under.
Are you saying that America is known for just suing each other, like back and forth and arguing?
I give my ex-president Bill Clinton's reply. I can neither confirm nor deny whether or not I'm saying that Americans like to litigate. Mate, it's just an environment that that people they do take the situations like that. There's maybe a bit more resources to be able to to litigate in that regard. But it was certainly, I was looking forward to coming here and beginning my law career and pushing it forward here, because actually I actually, just before I left, I actually began my master's in international commercial arbitration, and the actual head, and I'm not too sure where he stands right now, but the guy that is like the number one, it's almost like a chief judge kind of position in international commercial arbitration. That guy is the dean at the Miami Law School, I think, and that's where I was wanting to head before I got,
Of course, everybody wants to go to Miami.
Yeah, hell yeah.
We look at the mining industry with your new business. Everybody thinks attorney, lots of money, to where it's like, how do you go from what people view as a lot of money, an awesome career, or what people think is an awesome career, into the mining industry, being on your tools and having your own customers?
Yeah, you know what? It's actually not too far-fetched as I thought it might be, because it's actually been a real blessing when it came time to, drafting up my standard terms and conditions for my company. Because now, I look at, now that I work for my own, my company, it's, I've got to take into consideration liability. And at what point does liability cross over towards me? Are there things where, what have I done to kind of protect myself in the event that, I might have done something silly, I've forgotten, to do something. And it's actually been really helpful to be able to not have to pay someone $10,000 to draft my standard terms of contract, and just to be aware of what my requirements are legally, not only as a business owner but as a Sparky as well.
So what started you? Why did you go from being an attorney and going down that path to being an electrician in a mine?
So I went back because one of the things is, man, you can make, some guys making money, as much money as an attorney. You know what I mean? Mining is such a lucrative environment, and I was looking. I'm getting on, and I've got a couple of kids that are going to go to college soon, and the decision to make was really, I need to be able to form an economic base. I need to form an economic base right now, and acquire a few assets that can generate passive income, so that my kids can, when it's time for them to go to college, there's going to be something in the cupboard there to be able to support them. But so that was really why I at first I wasn't going to stay in the field, but then I realized, my kids are getting older. My eldest is now 21. My youngest actually my daughter's, she's younger. She's 18. Then my son is 19. So it's like, I'm going to have kids going to college soon. You know what I mean?
So you needed to make some money.
I needed to make the bling, baby. And so that's why I decided to stay with mining, stick with mining, and just, not throw those legal skills away, but be careful, use those skills for my own company. And when it comes to contracts, make sure I'm able to, utilize all my knowledge there to be able to make sure that the company is protected and informed as much as they are. And I tried to actually take a swing and to a swing of trying to combine my electrical and my legal at one of the last mines that I spent a lot of time at. And unfortunately, that window never quite ever opened up. But I did try to push it there. But, the universe, God, whatever, you guys believe in, your past life is made for you, and you've got to create your opportunities. But when things don't happen for you, like I was really I was confused, right? When things didn't quite go the way that I thought that God wanted me to take them, right? But they didn't. But once I realized that that's okay, that's not the path that I was meant to take, then it was okay, and that God was going to, there was going to be another path for me. And no offense to anybody who doesn't believe in God, but I'm a
Sure.
Christian.
No, absolutely, man. And so that was, I guess, one of my questions for you is through this process, going from New Zealand, Australia to the United States, your whole traveling, whether it was an electrician to an attorney to mining and an electrician, what was one of the biggest influences for you, and how do you stay on track with all these things going on in your life?
Probably the biggest motivator is the wooden stick from my wife.
That's all of us.
To make sure that Dad's bringing home the bacon.
Sure.
The mining. I've never earned this kind of money before in my life, even as make much money as an intern, right? Yeah, it's just because it's an area that I have a lot of experience in the electrical industry. It was easy to fall into that, and then consequently get paid what the market was paying for someone with that level of skill. And so that looking after family, that's always the number one motivator, and trying to create a future for my family.
So how do you manage that work-life balance?
That's I got to say, I was listening to the other boys on their podcast, and I got to say I have the same outlook, which is it's always, you got to take time out for your family. There's only so many. Spending too much time devoted to work is not going to be enough to be able to have a successful home life as well as a work life. And there's an old proverb that in my culture that says ka tino pai ngā mea ki mua, ka tino pai ngā mea ki muri, ka tino pai ngā mea ki mua, which is translated as if to say, if things behind the scenes are going well, then you'll have everything you'll need to go well on the outside, so to speak, of your life. So for me, family is number one. My relationship with my wife, and my daughter, my boys, family has got to be first, because it's just that part of your life, of your psyche. I don't know anybody there's no human's a robot, no matter, I can robot dance, but nobody's a robot, and you've got different parts to your psyche, and psychology now are starting to recognize, hey, you've got to have that, that concept now of work, home life balance, and trying to get that right. But I find, like, right now, I will always take off Sunday. So Sunday is a Sabbath for me. I will take that day off. If I'm working 6 days, then I'll work 6 days. And that seventh day, I will take a breather, and just, recharge the batteries, take away the stresses that work brings, and just focus on, my family and myself.
So you got 3 days, you got 6 days that you work. And you might have worked 6 days in a row last time, or when you didn't own your own company. Now owning your own company comes with a couple, I would imagine, extra stressors.
It does.
So what do you do when those situations arise?
So I've been really, really blessed, actually, to right now, to have a bit of a boom time for my little company. And, the reality is that I've got to be able to pay the bills, and I've got to make sure that that I've got work coming in, and I can't control that. I can't control how much a third party's going to want to have my services. All I can control is I can control the service I deliver, and if I deliver a top-notch service with a very high standard, I know that the demand is out there for someone like that. Doors will open up for me, and then I'll get to mention something which has really opened up a big door for me right now to help out my business. But there are those stresses and wondering about what if, but something I like to think. I like to use the words from Tony Robbins. He talks about the concept of your story, and how your story and your worldview about a particular thing governs everything. It motivates everything that you do. And so I try to keep a positive story that, if I, coming back to to that standard, trying to have a standard, trying to make sure that the work that I do, I know is up to code. And any repairs that I do, that they're going to be up to code and they're going to be of a high quality and they're going to adhere to all the standards that you need to adhere to when you're out in the mining environment and dealing with voltage. So the other thing I do, and I have a little shout out to my little self-reliance group. So the church I go to is running a series called the Self-Reliance Program, which is a series of programs that help. They're 12-week programs that help people develop in particular areas of their life. And one of them that I've just begun is the Grow Your Own Business or Start Your Own Business. And so there's a group of, there's 4 ladies inside there and then myself and my wife. And so I've been able to learn, a couple of some really good skills there about how to keep positive cash flow in your business and keeping, your customer happy because, everybody, can always remember, wherever there was a place that they ate at that where the service sucked or the food was terrible, and so for me, trying to deliver, a really professional, top-notch, efficient, safe a service, I've just found in the short time I've been in business that that's what people are looking for. And
well, knowing you, I worked with you at one mine site out here, open pit. You came from the open pit, right? And then I actually caught up with you probably 3-4 months ago. You were doing contractor work. I had just moved to a different site underground, and we started kind of going down this rabbit hole, and the more I talk to people like, oh, Kiwi, blah, 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 the quality of work that you do, and I'll talk from a personal perspective, is top-notch. That service that you provided. Now, here's the thing. When or why is it so difficult to find an electrician?
You'll find them at the beginning of shift and then at the end of shift in the shower.
Right.
But that small gap of 12 hours in between there.
Well, what I recall from the last podcast that we did with Kiwi, and something that sat with me, and I was one of the reasons I was excited to have you back on, is because we almost coined the term the Kiwi Standard. That was something that you were very, very proud of in the work that you deliver for your customers. Is you want to raise the bar, you want to set the Kiwi Standard for the work that you do. So how do you bring that to your customer, and how do you ensure that you do that on every job that you have out in front of you?
I'm not trying to sound corny here again, but I want to go back to something that I learned from Tony Robbins again, which is one of the things he says is when he talks about success and failure, he says success isn't one giant leap. It's not a giant leap that takes you from square 0 to square 100 and you're successful. It's a whole lot of small jumps, walks, crawls, of things that you do that are habitual, and he calls these things rituals. And so for me, I like to think that I have set rituals that I follow every time I'm going to be approached with an electrical situation. And I find that if I have those rituals as my standard, that every time I pull up to a job, and it doesn't matter whether it's fixing a light circuit or whether it's trying to figure out what's going wrong inside this rung on a ladder rung inside a PLC program. It's all, if you have a set of rituals, and those rituals is stop. And you gotta do this. There's nobody under. The thing about being underground, it's different being underground, right? Because it's just you and the driller. It's not, there are no 100 eyes like you are at the surface that might be looking on you while they're driving and passing the car. So it really comes down to your ethics, your standard, and the rituals that you have. And so my rituals approaching any job are, that Latoto is one of the greatest things that mining has really taught me.
When you're talking about lockout, tag out, try out, Latoto.
Yes, yeah, that Latoto. Yeah, absolutely. America, they're the first people to come up with that standard in the electrical industry, the NFPA 70E, which is, most people know it as the arc flash standard. That standard actually is down under. But America are the people who first come up with it, and we've adopted that standard down under. Now, that NFPA or R-class standard is one of the smartest things that has ever been, that I feel I've ever learned, because I know now what I need to do to keep myself safe and anybody else safe, for that matter, in the event of an R-class incident, and how to prevent that, right? Prevention is better than cure, right? And so if you can prevent those kind of hazards with voltage occurring, people get to know you for the standards that you have and the rituals that you have. So it's not uncommon if you pulled up to, a heading and I was troubleshooting a drill, it wouldn't be uncommon for you to go and have a look at the main isolation point, which is usually a T-box. Go there and find that my lock's on there. My tag's on there, right? And that's a standard that people will come to figure out that's very common with me. So those are little rituals, that I like to perform. And like I say, it doesn't matter whether it's a light switch or high voltage, a high voltage bracket, a high voltage slip rings, a PLC rung. It's, going through, doing your 5-point card, 10-point card, whatever it is, doing an analysis of the hazards that are there that you are going to be involved with. And now that I own my own company, boy, do I really have to make sure that I do something like that, right?
Yeah, totally.
So let me ask, when you do this, these guys are laughing at me because I always ask the question.
So let me ask you this: what are some moments in your life that that has altered your mining journey?
Probably one of the biggest ones was when there was a guy at a mine that I worked at, and oh boy, I was a supervisor at the time at the underground, and I was a little bit worried because, man, news travel's fast in Nevada, right? And in fact, I think it was my wife. She texted me. She asked me, "Where are you?" Because she thought I was, I might have been involved in it, or was it happened to me? But she knew an accident had happened at the mine, right? And he ended up being one of my fellow colleagues, but he was down in the surface. And I'm not going to name names, but through a lack, in my opinion, through a lack of training, this poor gentleman had an arc flash incident. And that shut the mine down for about, thank goodness he's alive. He survived. He had some of his PPE on, but he never had the PPE that was required by the 70E standard, right? And if he had, then he wouldn't have had that. Well, if he had done an arc flash analysis, then that incident would never have happened. And so from that incident, I quickly rang up my guys and says, hey, track down and, hey, make sure... touch base and say, hey, are you guys okay? Was it you guys? No, it wasn't. It was one of the Sparkies down at the surface. So that one event there shut the mine down for about 6 weeks. And then, I really got to see, wow, the downstream effects of not only the hazards that and injuries that the person faced and he didn't know. He just didn't have the knowledge, right? But not only the hazards that his family had to pick for and injuries he had to face to overcome, but also what happened to all the families that missed out on having the mine closed, for, it was 6 weeks, I think, we opened up.
So then there's the question I was going to ask earlier was, you seem like you're very in tune with NFPA standards, NEC standards, MSHA standards. Not everybody's going to read them like you read them, or not everybody is going to, I'll even say interpret them the way that you have interpreted them. You also have that background of being an attorney to read some of this language that it's written in. It's not, it's the language that it's written in is a little bit different than reading a normal fiction book, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do, and how would you help individuals like that? Or what would you say to individuals out there that maybe don't have or haven't read those books or looked into those books?
I would say, so I heard this good phrase that says, never play a game that you don't know the rules of. And because you're going to lose 9 times out of 10. So I would say in the first instance, if you're in this industry, it's a lifestyle, it's a standard, and I almost feel like it's an oath. When I actually became an attorney, I actually took an oath when I was admitted to the New Zealand Bar Supreme Court, and doctors, we hear medical physicians, right? They take the oath as an oath as well. I really feel like as Sparkies, we really take an oath because we take people's lives in our hands with the things that we do. And so I really think that we should have just a higher ownership of that responsibility. And so in the first instance, You got to be able to know, you've got to read the books. You've got to be able to read the NEC. When the next change comes out, you've got to get that book. And if you struggle with the NEC, then grab the handbook for that year, because the handbook is glorious. I buy the handbook every year that it comes out, right? Because it just adds a bit more information, because a lot of those words, attorneys find it hard to be able to litigate. Oh, no, that word means this. And then, the counter argument was, well, actually, no, that word actually means this. And so if attorneys are finding it hard to understand the language, then I can understand how my fellow brethren and sisters who are journeymen, would find it hard to understand. So that's why I strongly advise people to get the handbook, because the NEC handbook is just glorious and just explaining things. And if you're like me, you like a lot of pictures, then it's really, 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 really good for that. And I think the other thing is it just comes back to having a standard. You are your own person. Don't set your standards to what someone else has tried to set your standards at. You set your own standards, and take pride in your work, and know that if you can do that in the small areas of the small parts of your job, then it's going to show up. It's going to show up, and other people will see that. You don't do it just because other people will see that, but you do want people that you do work for to be confident in your ability to be able to assess the situation, complete a task right, and make sure that the equipment that you're working on is up to code. Like, for example, one of my I've had a couple of situations where where some things haven't been up to the NEC code, and if I never paid attention, took the time to read that, that would be something that would probably incur, especially with an electrical MSHA inspector. If that thing stood out to me, oh, you bet, sure as heck that thing would stand out to an MSHA electrical inspector.
So you've got,
I was just gonna ask it. Working with all the different mines that you have, working on the surface. I'm assuming at this point that you worked on P&H shovels. Yes, sir. You've worked on,
love them,
underground. To where that's what your business offers now. You have other people working with you. How do you keep those people up to the Kiwi standard? And when you're out at site, how do you stay motivated on what you're passionate about when it comes to work?
Knowing that your check's not going to be paid is a huge motivation. It's that wooden spoon from the wife. That in the background of every thought, choice I make, right? It really comes down to, you've got to be able to. It's hard to get someone else right. You can't force someone else to do what you want them to do, to live your standard. But if you can live that standard yourself, at least that you're setting an example to how it should be. And I'm not the most perfect guy. I don't get everything right all the time, but I have a set of rituals that I follow, that help keep me safe, that help keep the people that I work with safe.
Are you a leader by doing? Is that what you would say?
I believe so. Yeah, absolutely. And whilst you can't control somebody else, what you can do is you can control the impact that you have on someone else. You can set a standard, because people come to expect, certain things from you when you are doing your profession. There are little things, big things that people notice. And if you could just try and have that standard, then most people, when it comes to paying money, most people want the best kind of, best as possible that's available at the time. And when you can save people, when you can pick up issues before they arise, and prevent a hazard, 480 volts, that's not going to be very forgiving. If you get that wrong, things make a big bang. And then, of course, 1,000 volts, 7200 on the P&Hs, or the Cat 7095s, those are big mamas where it really isn't forgiving. 120's okay, although more people get shocked by that. But, I just come back to, you got to have a standard, because you can't expect someone else to live a standard. You know what I mean? That you're not living yourself.
So you're saying whether you're on surface or you're in the underground, you have the set of rituals that you go into every task with, to where you ensure your safety. So if you had to pick surface or underground, what would it be?
It'd definitely be underground for sure.
Why?
It's because probably
Showers.
because of the the underground guys are here. Yeah. I prefer the underground because of the weather. That's really the biggest thing
The
that
weather.
I like. Yeah, because it's man, I tell you, I've been out on the end of a tail pulley, trying to look at a zero speed sensor on the surface, and you open up that control box, and that's when wintertime, and of course it's going to happen right at midnight. And you're on shift, and it snows when you're on shift, and you're having to combat the elements. It's really just a convenience thing, a preference thing. But in saying that, here's where my love for the surface happens. Is I got to say that at the surface, my skill level improved more by being at the surface than it did being at the underground, because there's only so many things that you have at the underground. There are certain things that you don't have at the underground that are up on the surface, like, for example, the mill, the P&H shovel. That's the best shovel in the world. Personal preference there. But, I got to really expand my skill set by being at the surface. But still, with all that exposure, I still prefer the underground.
So with all this experience in the electrical field, being on the surface and being in the underground, how do you sell your business to these companies? How do you let them know, I have all this experience, I can do everything from A to Z? How do you get yourself out there?
Actually, it's really was began by cold calling. I just did the old traditional buy a 6-pack of donuts, and I literally went cold calling, and I figured out the guys that were in the industry in town, and there were quite a few of them, and I just went and dropped off my business card. Some of the companies around here already know me, but ironically, the two people that are my main clients are people that I just cold called on. So
they took a chance on you. They've got their meat hooks into the Kiwi Standard, and essentially with them, you're setting the new standard for what the I&E world looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can only you can the guys that I deal with, so they could pretty much figure out the extent of my knowledge with drills. So I'm really narrowing it down. Right, I'm looking now at just the drilling environment.
Is there a reason for that?
There is, because there is one dream that I do have in relation to a drill, building a particular drill. But it's also because by going out and working on other pieces of equipment, it's just a whole lot more work to try and get work going. Whereas the guys around town, a lot of the contractors around town, they've got a lot of their equipment in their shops, and if they are out on site, that's okay, because most of the sites I've been to fix stuff anyway. But
how far are you traveling to work every day?
Thank goodness, so far I'm just traveling from Spring Creek to Alco, and then when there's a breakdown, then it's go out on site.
Do you have people at site working for you, or are you just strictly by yourself?
I'm a lone sheriff right now, but I do have one girl that's gonna help me with these lasers that I've designed.
Let's talk about that a little bit and walk us through that. So you've taken a step out of the mining industry as being a contractor, as being one of the electricians at site, to starting your own business. You've got a couple clients. You're building something. Talk to us about that.
So since I'm really grateful to have this second chance to be able to meet with you guys and do a podcast again, because since then I've been able to have two clients that, and the second one really only became interested in me after I've been knocking on his door like 5 times, right, and no interest. But once I had mentioned about this device that I designed, oh boy, people became interested in me. And there was actually another guy who became really interested in me as well, another company. They became interested in me because of this device that I designed. So one of my clients got told that they needed to find the electrician who had dealt with there's a laser barrier system that's on one of the drills, and simply put, what it is it's a trip laser, and it's kind of like most people at the underground would realize when you go through the air doors, there are photo eyes sensors on the sides of the rib, and they have a transmitter and a receiver, and once you go through that, break that beam, then it's meant to actuate the doors and open them up for you and close them as well. So what I designed was something that's very similar, that's on a drill, and it's a trip laser system, and same ideas, the same basic principle as those photo eyes on the ribs, where as you break through this laser, what it does is it actually shuts off an output. Now that could be any type of solenoid. It could be your rotation solenoid. It could also be your load sense solenoid. It shuts off basically anything as an output. And what I did to make these devices different, and this is...
So is this a safety device?
This is a safety device. So I'm explaining this poorly.
So I guess this is what I'm picturing right now. You're in the underground. You're at the face with this drill. There's this laser device. If you pass through this laser device, it's going to shut your drill down.
Yes, sir. It's going to shut off rotation, or it's going to shut off your load sense solenoid. Correct.
And that's gonna let the driller know, hey, somebody's here.
Somebody's here. Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
That's the whole. Sorry, guys. Yeah, that's the whole objective of the device, is to catch people who are not meant to be in the heading from the dangers of a rotating drill head.
Now, how far back does this device? Is it on the drill itself, or is it back on the rib?
So this is where I distinguish my device from the existing
before
one.
you answer this, make sure not to give away any proprietary information from yourself, so that somebody doesn't come and... That was my 2 cents.
Hey, thank you, brother. Yeah, 10-4. So, yeah, I am in the process of getting this patented, and, I look at areas where, my attorney knowledge isn't going completely to waste, so I then use that to look on the register, up on the US patent website, to look for who has the original patent for this, and to make sure that what I designed was not, didn't overlap that. So the device I created is totally revolutionary from the original device, because mine, all you need to do is just plug it into a 110 outlet. And everybody's got to have a 110 outlet at the underground or at the surface for that matter, because you need lights at night, right? And so I made mine portable as well, so that you could take that when you pack up the drill, you can pack up the laser transmitter and receiver reflector as well.
That's awesome. I mean, as a supervisor, walking down to the face, looking at a drill, sometimes, obviously, these guys are focused on what's in front of them.
Right.
Where whether it's a safety issue that's going on, or you just want to, hey, that's a direction that somebody's here. Turn around, stop. Let's talk. What's going on? You know, I mean, obviously, somebody's walking into your work area to where, let's stop work, and it's automated now.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And very simple. I try to, the system is independent, so there's no need to jump into your control panel and add anything. All the controls are inside my my portable enclosure. And the cool thing is when you walk up to most headings at the underground, or even if you were at a shovel PM, the barricade that's there is either some tape, or it's
cones,
cones, whatever. And, people can walk through that, or they can walk under it. But with the laser in place, you don't see the laser. All you see is two boxes on the side, placed on the side. You don't, unless you know they're there, you're not going to know what they're for, and you won't even see the laser beam.
Well, what you see, too, on the surface with these big P&H shovels that they do services on, right? What happens is they put these cones up, they have this big box that they set up, and everybody's got to put their lockout tag out. All that can still be there, but you have these laser devices that go around to where people are walking through these beams, and it either sets off an alarm, or it shuts different things down. It heightens that awareness, and that's awesome. That is revolutionary.
It really is. So these companies that you're working with now, so far, how has that been received by them?
So I got to be honest, I haven't even had a chance to actually get them into installed on the machines yet. I'm still building these things, but I've taken the prototype and showed them how it works, and they're really tickled pink because, it's now they're looking at not just using it on their underground drills, but on their surface drills as well. Because most heads up there, if you look at a surface drill, doesn't usually have a guard around it. And so, people always have a habit of, whether they intend to or not, approach the drill head. And that thing, man, if that thing, you ever got caught up in that or you were curious about it and the driller didn't see you or the helper, there's a high potential there, right, to get people injured. So to be able to add just a small dimension to helping people, prevent them from getting injured, has really been a turn and a turn for the better for my business, because my second client and a third client became really interested once they knew what I had designed, because the other things that are out in the market, in comparison, are nowhere near as versatile or as useful or cost-wise as efficient as the deals that I've been able to design and invent. And the second thing, and here's the real thing that I'm really looking forward to now, and maybe I'm seeing where my international sales law thing is going to come into play, because if these devices can be sold elsewhere, then there's going to be the play of two international laws, right? So I'm seeing, that maybe that's where that path was really meant to be.
Yeah, your history with being an attorney, coming from out of country into this country, now having this device, all the pieces of the puzzle are coming together. And
I think so.
And now, instead of Kiwi INE LLC just being in the Elko region, you could be global.
I hope so. Yeah, that would be really awesome. I like the way you sound there, Dino. Say that, Dino. But it doesn't even stop there. What that then opened my mind up to was I started to see where the different applications that this could be used, such as at the shovel, on the PM, instead of having those cones, and then, there's this one device that I think will sell more than that actual laser. It's going to involve the laser, but it's just a different application that, this thing can be used in so many applications that can actually improve the safety of operators and heavy equipment. I mean,
I'm just thinking like conveyor belts and different aspects like that too, that you're in a processing division and you don't want to go into an area, or you have this area locked down. How easy would it be for a knucklehead like myself to set up a barrier, put a sign there, walk away? But if somebody walks in that area, it's all shut down now.
Here we go.
Well, what I see in my industry is what they've done with the MHEs or forklifts. There's these little beacons, and everybody in the warehouses, they have these little chip readers on their pocket, and that's just part of your PPE that you wear, to where you walk into this area, and if you're within a certain distance from this MHE, what happens is it throws this blue light up on that piece of equipment to let somebody know that you're there, to where essentially this is the same thing, and that's
different application, or different setup, different approach to the similar. It's a better mousetrap. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a better mousetrap. I think so, because it just takes up the slack where other measures that are being used currently don't quite take up the slack at.
Well, and so I've been involved with some of this stuff to the point where it kind of works, it kind of doesn't. It doesn't do this, it doesn't do that. What you're at least telling me right now, I look at some of the automation that's going around in the industry and having those gates set up, but they're different because it's not a proven system in the sense that you're talking right now, because A doesn't talk to B, or A's one program, B's another program, and what it sounds like is you've said that regardless of the program, we're setting this up on a standalone thing. I'm going to connect it and we're going to be good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I try to make it, kind of versatile, right? So that you can use it anywhere. And in fact, I was telling this sweet old guy at Home Depot about, I went to get a couple of parts down there, and I was telling this guy at Home Depot about it, and he says to me, well, you know what, Kiwi? I need that to shut off my drill, because you know those orange gates that we pull across the end so that people don't come in while we're working on the big saw? Says, yeah, you would be surprised how many times people unlatch that because it's just a latch, walk through. I says, it would be nice to be able to, have something like that to be able to shut off the drill, my saw, before people actually get close to where it becomes a hazard to them. And I was like, hell yeah, Grandpa, I'll sell that to you 7 days a week.
So with the sale, wanting to sell the product out there, how are you approaching that in the mining industry? Is it just word of mouth, or are you starting to cold call again, saying, hey, this is something that I've got that could help revolutionize your property?
Actually, I've been so busy. That's why I went and approached somebody to see if she wants to come on board and just help build the lasers for me, because I've just been snowed under this last 4 to 6 weeks, and I just really haven't had time to be able to go out there and market this device and just show people that that it could be an option that they could use to be able to, make their environment a little bit safer. And it's so flexible and easy to use, and simple that, it can really be applied in any area, any application where you do want to notify people of before they come into an area where there's a particular hazard. So right now, I really haven't done too much on the marketing phase because I'm still trying to keep, the other side of my business going. And I really need a second set of hands to be able to take care of that, so I could just focus on these safety devices, because I think that there's a huge market out there for something like that, especially in the mining environment.
So you're saying that you're out there and you've created this new product, but your focus is still being an electrician or an HVAC expert. So you're kind of wearing two hats. This new product's awesome and you're trying to make it work. But on the other side of that, you actually are putting in a 12-hour day and still wrenching or still working.
Yep. Yeah. I still got to wrench. I still got to keep the clients, keep the client stuff running and keep it going. And that is, I've got to. That is, something I've got to focus on, and it really has come down to I've just got to have faith that once again it's kind of like beginning the attorney path. Eventually, that road will become clear, and it'll make itself known to me, but more clearer. And as much as I wish I could just focus on these devices just solely, I just need to keep focusing on turning the wrenches, and that's why I actually approached a friend to see if she'd come on board and just mirror image what I've done, and so that she can build the lasers,
cool.
So that I can then focus on getting the work done, but then also get out there and start marketing these devices.
Well, yeah, essentially implementing the second phase of your business.
Yep. Yeah. Here we go.
Cool, man. Well, we'll definitely help. So keep us in the loop and keep us involved, and send Dino and myself. And I know you don't do the Facebook very much, but keep us in the loop on that. And for people out there looking to reach Kiwi, it's Kiwi INE LLC. And then your phone number is 775-401-4372.
Yes, sir.
They can also reach him at KDog, the Sparky, at gmail.com.
Hell yeah.
We want to help support you in that, Kiwi. Like I said, working with you, I know there's the Kiwi Standard out there. You work to a high level of standard. You're a quality guy, somebody you can walk up to and BS with, and ask those standard questions. And I know I've picked your brain quite a bit out in the field. Hey, what about this? Hey, what about that? And help wrap my head around some stuff. So I think that anybody who chooses to go with your service is going to be very pleased, in my opinion. That would be mine.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Kiwi, I just want to say thanks for coming on again. We appreciate your time very much. And like I said, we look forward to seeing what you got coming up.
Thank you, sir.
Kiwi Kapua, right? Kiwi INE LLC.
Kiwi INE LLC, yes, sir.
Check it out. Look it up. We'll throw it out there for you, too. Coming up in the next few weeks, we'll have your name out there. Thanks, man, for coming on.
Thank you, guys.
Everybody
really
out
appreciate
there,
it.
check out miningmindsllc.com, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, MySpace, all of it. Adios.
Adios.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, brass in on our website at miningmindsllc.com.